Welcome to Beauty in the Power Show with Dr. Cheryl Vernay. I am so excited today that I have the extreme divine pleasure to introduce to my fabulous audience you, the incredible Mr. Chad Lawson Cooper. Welcome, welcome, sir, to my humble abode.
Well, thank you, my dear sister. It's a tremendous blessing to be here with you. You know, I admire your prowess in the entertainment industry, and you too have done so much in terms of your career. And so it's always a good synergy between you and I.
Absolutely. I'm sitting here and I have full disclosure. I have to just say, this is truly my brother.
Absolutely.
We vibe, we hang, we just have good times. And I appreciate you, the artist, the gifting that operates in your life. I appreciate what you bring to the world through your craft. And that's what we're going to be talking about. This man is absolutely amazing. When he starts to break down his vision and what he does, how he does it, where he does it, and who he does it with, it's going to be mind blowing.
You're too kind.
So let me just start off with some fire rapid questions. Who is Chad? Who is Chad?
Well, that's a complicated question because I am a lot of things to different people. First thing, I would say that I am a believer
Yes.
in Jesus Christ.
Amen.
I am a husband, a father, a grandfather, a movie producer, a playwright,
Yes.
a musical artist and musician, a communicator, prognosticator. I am a conduit to so many communities and so many people
Yes, you are.
across the world. So it's to some I'm a brother,
Yes.
to some I'm an uncle, to many I'm an employer, a creator, a visionary.
Awesome. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about your vision. Sir, you were sitting here because you epitomized to me someone who has been able to take his vision and not just monetize it, but globalize it. That's mind blowing. Many of us that are creatives have the mindset of doing all kinds of things. I mean, we dream of being an actor. We dream of being an artist. Meaning a singer.
Yes.
We dream of being a musician. But you've been able to not just dream it, you've been able to package it, market it, and create an actual tool that blesses people and keeps your lifestyle where you want it to be. That's amazing. And I want you to share with our audience how you do that. How do you roll out? So the first question is, how do you roll out the first vision? And then how do you subsequently keep adding on? Because as he's already told you, he does more than one thing quite well.
Well, this is a great question. It really boils down to belief. All things are possible to them that believe.
That's right.
And real belief is knowing from my early ages, and I grew up in a small town in Florida, and I would spend most of my summers in New York, here in Brooklyn, or and some in Irvington, New Jersey. And I've always known from a child that I would be a New Yorker. I've always known that I would have a business in New York and I would be some type of artist. Um, and so I think the first thing is to really believing what you have been called to do. Purpose in signifying and identifying purpose is so very powerful.
Yes.
And then once you convince yourself that this is what you're supposed to do, it doesn't matter what obstacles come your way
Come on now.
because they will come. The weapons will be formed against
Yes.
you, but they won't prosper. In other words, they won't last. Now,
Amen.
there is, I'm going to have to go biblical right here in terms of belief. Abraham believed God, and the Bible says that that was counted towards him as righteousness. It was not his ways, or oh, I'm not going to tell a lie today, or I'm not going to cuss today, etc. But the fact that he believed
Come on
God
now.
was his righteousness. And so, and then David comes back and says, I've never seen the righteous, those that believe me. Those that believe me, I'm going to repeat that again. Those that believe
Those
me,
that
forsaken, neither their seed beg for bread. And so there were times on this journey when, in terms of being in the entertainment industry, because I started out and I went to school for philosophy and religion, and I started out as a pastor. And I was in Miami, Florida, and at the time working with my wife, and we were chaperoning some students at Florida Memorial University, and she had dragged me to this play, and I didn't even want to go see no play, and I'm sitting there in the play, and I hear this voice, audible voice of my perception of what God sounds like to me, and he says, you're going to have to shift what you're doing, and you're not meant to
Awesome.
pastor traditionally for the rest of your life. You're going to do plays and movies, and you're going to travel.
Awesome.
And so when God spoke to me, it was at a Michael Baisden's play, Men Cry in the Dark, and I was literally crying in the dark, and my wife was like hitting me and saying, why are you crying? This play is not that good.
Disclaimer, Michael.
in terms of making someone cry.
Right.
And so I told her when we got home, I said, we're going to shift. And this is what I've been called to do.
Awesome.
Now, that didn't mean that we wouldn't have obstacles or, various situations that would come up. And so in the course of it, we basically transformed our ministry from a traditional ministry to our first production, which was Church Mess. And that took about 6 months, and we were a big hit in Miami, and then our first out of town show was in Palm Beach.
Okay.
And this is what I found fascinating. We went to Palm Beach, and we were doing it at a high school auditorium, and all the accoutrements that we needed, they were just not there. But because it seemed like we were overnight sensations in Miami, that, we're going to be a hit in Palm Beach. But we get there, our set is 8 feet wide and 8 feet tall. This stage dimensions are 45 feet wide and 26 feet tall. And so it looked like we had a little piece of board for a backdrop. The sound was absolutely horrible, and I felt like people were throwing bananas at us. I was like, man, I should give up. I should give up. I heard wrong. And I remember driving back to Miami that night and saying, we got another show there the next day. Like, how in the world can we do this? And so we go back, and it's a little better, but it was still terrible. And then I wanted to give up, and then I heard God say to me, but I call you to do this.
But I've called you.
And so what you need to do is get everything that you need fixed. You need professional sound, and you need a professional set. Now go back and do it again. We went back and did it again in Miami at a professional theater, and it was a hit.
Awesome.
Went to Jacksonville, Florida, Times Union, lines wrapped around the building. So here's the thing. At that time, I was told in Miami, when we first started, well, how in the world are you going to sell tickets and charge $30 back then, which is 20 years ago, and nobody knows who you are but church people in Miami? And I said, because God told me. And because God told me, that means that he stamped his approval on it.
There you go.
It's going to work.
He's going to open up those doors.
We sold out 2 weeks early.
Woo.
And so touring from around the country, at that time, my wife was the only one that had a national appeal because she had led this song with John P. Key.
Okay.
And so she was kind of like the headliner,
The draw.
the draw, because you could tie the John P. Key into it. But people would, in my early years, well, we never heard of you before you heard of me now.
Exactly.
And so that's what I would do. But years later, when we moved to New York about 10 years ago, my whole trajectory in approach had changed because we had done over 150 cities, and now we're setting up here in New York. And it was funny when I set my company up in New York. I wanted to be on Broadway in terms of my base, and Justice on Trial was just coming about, which was not a gospel play. It's a social justice play, and that's a whole nother story.
Okay.
And I get this call, but I think my first play was Family Mess. And
Okay, so wait a minute. Back up. There was the first play
the first play I really
in Miami.
no, in Miami was Church Mess.
Church Mess.
But the first play we did Church Mess here.
Okay.
And it was phenomenal. This is like 12 years ago. This is before we moved here permanently. And
but Church Mess. So go in chronological order.
Okay, so
was first,
which we toured in over 150 cities.
Church Mess.
Then Family Mess came out of Church Mess.
Okay.
So when I moved to New York, Family Mess was the highlighted play.
Okay.
And I was still developing Justice on Trial. So I get this call from a guy out of Harlem, and he says, "I hear you bringing a play to New York." I say, "That's correct." He said, "Well, nobody's contacted me because all plays go through us." I said, "Is that true? Is that really okay?"
Want to give
cool.
a name?
Yeah, I can't remember his name. I'm sorry.
I think I know who it is.
and so I said, "Okay, well, really." And I said, "And you do plays where?" And he told me the theater, which seats like 99 people. I said, "Well, okay, well, I'd love to meet you, but you said you've never heard of me, but you're calling me. So apparently you've heard of me. I've certainly not heard of you. And but you're welcome to come to my show, of course. And but I'm not used to doing plays in places that only seat 99 people. I have a more of a national approach. My average audience is 1,500 plus people."
Yes, it is.
And so he came to the show, and it was jam packed. And he ended up leaving because he was just probably
his mind
mad.
was blown. He had probably never seen an out of towner come and sell out like that.
Yeah.
Before. So let's pivot. Let's pivot for a minute. You have a audible hearing from the Lord.
Yes.
He spoke to you in the middle of an actual play.
Yes.
And from there, you literally had the audacity to trust what you heard.
Yes.
And step out on faith.
Step out on faith.
Let's stick a pin right there. That is huge. Most of us don't know how to really do that. I mean, we think we do, but we don't do it. You have to be bold. You have to be courageous.
Right.
You have to be fearless to step out on faith. Amen?
Absolutely.
So that's very important that you get this.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you can be deposited with a dream.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't take that one step, you better not even expect God to make 2 or 3 or 4 happen for you.
Well, a lot of people, Dr. Cheryl Renee, they don't really want to accept the fruit of the Spirit that says long suffering.
There you go.
You know, they want the peace and love and happiness and all of that. But then
But that journey is
on the
real.
journey, you're gonna have some long suffering.
Mm-hmm.
When I moved to New York, that particular year, I had never been separated from my wife and kids, but we were separated for basically a year. And I moved to New York homeless.
Wow.
And started and put the money that I was able to make into my business and opened up my office, but I slept in my car.
That's the real story.
Yeah. I slept in my car many nights Sometimes I would wake up with a ticket on the windshield, and did not know that, how dangerous it was
Right.
to sleep on Murder Avenue
On Murder
sometimes.
Avenue, which is Myrtle Avenue, used to be called Murder Avenue back in the day. Myrtle Avenue in Brooklyn was rough.
Yes, because when I was a kid, I remember seeing someone stabbed on Myrtle Avenue,
Seriously.
which now we live on Myrtle
Yeah.
Avenue, and it's a wonderful place to live. I mean,
Beautiful place to
yeah,
live.
yeah, it's kind
But
of
reality is, it wasn't back then. 30
no,
years ago.
no. But living, in New York, my first experience moving here was a homeless experience. But I had one suit, one good pair of shoes, not so good though. I had a hole in the bottom of it. No one could see it. Now I always looked presentable, but I would keep focused on what I was supposed to
The
do.
dream.
And I ran into a gentleman who now is a politician. I won't say his name in Brooklyn, who is also a minister too. And we got to talking. And he said, "Man, you could sublease my place on Hanson Place for like $500 a month, and right behind the mall." And that's how I stopped to being
Wow.
homeless
That's powerful.
in New York.
God touched someone's heart
Yeah,
to take you out of that situation
yeah,
because you were on track
yes,
to do God's work.
yes,
And that's what he'll do. He will make a way out of no way. Oh boy, do I know all about
yeah.
that.
He always
what a
provides.
testimony.
He always provides.
Always.
And so from there, Justice on Trial comes about, and it literally shifted the whole trajectory of what I do. I don't necessarily do gospel plays anymore, but
You
but
do
that's what-
political plays.
Yeah,
You do poignant
yeah.
plays, yes.
Yeah. I mean, but of course, the essence of who I am, I'm still a believer.
Yes.
And so it's still laced with this spirituality
Yes.
of it. Justice on
Yes.
Trial, as you know, is about two civil rights attorneys suing the U.S. Justice Department for reparations and ongoing systemic racism issues within the African American diaspora.
And that's a mouthful.
Yeah.
And that's a reality that
Yeah.
we currently live in.
And we bring back time traveler witnesses like Harriet Tubman, Medgar Evers, Emmett Till, and Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois to testify to a modern day multicultural jury, blacks, whites, and Hispanics. So the
Yes.
dialogue gets really, really, really real.
Intense.
And we've been blessed in terms of having Harriet Tubman's family endorse it. Her great nephews are all doctors that live in
Yes.
Florida.
Quite profound.
Yeah, she raised their grandmother, which was her niece. Some say it was her biological daughter, but they have her gun, her sword. I've been able to even have that in the production, in one of my productions, and then W.E.B. Du Bois's grandson is in the production that
Yes.
actually plays him.
Yes.
And then Harry Lennox and I are partners, and since before I was what you call quote unquote a bona fide celebrity, where you can Google me, and when Facebook gave me my blue check
presence, yeah.
years ago, and I didn't even ask for it. I was like, okay, well, and if going through the airport, and people always stop, and
Yes,
and,
they recognize you and your work.
and so that's but the isness of it, I'm still a real person.
Yes, absolutely.
And I'm real to this.
Thank you.
And I've been blessed to have a camaraderie of people such as yourself, such as Harry Lennox, and a whole lot of people in addition to my wife, who who also is a great entertainer.
She's a
And my
musical legend in the making.
yes, and my son.
Yes, who can sing as well.
Yes. So
Chad number 2.
yes, so
Blessing. It's a
it's been a
blessing.
tremendous journey.
You have a whole gifted tribe
Yes.
that you have born, and it's a blessing to see not just you and your wife, but your offsprings
Yeah,
bring so
absolutely.
much to our creative community.
Absolutely.
It's a pleasure to have you, because you're speaking, I believe, to this audience about the power of endurance,
Yes,
the power of your faith.
you can never give up.
Can never give up.
You would be the only reason that you don't win.
Say it again, please.
You would be the only reason that you don't win.
I think you need to say it one more time.
You will be the only reason that you don't win if you give up. If you don't give up, it doesn't matter. Here's the thing. I've been killed a long time, and I've been killed several times, but I didn't die.
Come on now. Meaning they try to write them out, write them off,
Yeah.
and write them in.
Yeah.
But you stayed.
Yeah. And the other thing is, many a times we'll have great talent within ourselves, and we'll know this, but people, for whatever reason, and